All right, this is our Don't Freeze Act Community ICE Defense Training. My name is Sarah McConkey. I'm one of the leaders of the Indivisible Utah County group. We're an Indivisible group about an hour south of Salt Lake City. But this training hopefully is helpful and applicable to anyone throughout Utah or wherever you happen to be in how to interact with ICE and keep your community safe. Let's get right to it. First of all, legal disclaimer. In plain English, we really tried to present good and helpful information based on good sources, but we're not lawyers. We're just people trying to give you information. So please, if you need to consult an actual lawyer, do so, but this should be generally helpful advice for most of us. So what is the purpose of this training? I think that at this point, every single one of us has seen this video. This was on October 30th at the Salt Lake International Airport. This woman was detained. It was disturbing to watch on so many levels. Of course, it's awful to see a person treated this way, just hauled away, screaming, distraught, begging for people to listen to her, to help her. But it was disturbing for me to essentially see people just let it happen, to not be doing anything. Of course, there's someone who is recording this and saying things like, have mercy on her, don't do this. So it's not that no one cared. That's not the situation. But still, you just watch the people just watching this happen. This woman is being taken away, and most people are just kind of standing and watching it happen. And it's possible that everyone in that is just a terrible person. Like, that's a possibility, right? I really hope and believe that's not the case. My theory is that most people just froze. I think that these are really scary times. Most of us have never been in a situation where masked people just kidnapped and dragged someone away. Like, this is not something that we have faced before. It's really, really scary. I hope this never feels normal. Nothing about this should feel normal, but if we can have thought through these scenarios and thought, okay, if I am in this situation, if I am the bystander, what would I do? What things do I need to do? What things do I need to say in this situation so you can be empowered to act, not freeze? The people who turned Anne Frank in were following the law. The people who hid her were breaking it. We aren't here to tell you to go assault people and burn things down. Indivisible is a nonviolent organization. However, we want to present you with all the knowledge that we can so that then you can act informed on this knowledge and make your choices in the situations you find yourself in. So you are aware, there can be legal consequences for what you do when you interact with ICE in a situation where someone is being detained. You could face as many as 20 years in prison if physical contact occurs between you and an ICE or Department of Homeland Security, any type of federal agent. If no physical contact occurs, generally what you're looking at is a misdemeanor charge that could come with fines, community service, or 6 months to a year in serving time. We would certainly encourage you, if at all possible, do not make physical contact with any type of federal person. This is going to dramatically increase your risk of facing legal problems and, of course, physical danger. There are also a variety of aiding and abetting and obstruction charges. You may be surprised because you feel like, oh, well, if I'm going to go try to help make sure ICE is not detaining someone and I'm not going to be violent, then I'm not doing anything illegal. Well, you may be surprised to find some of these things could draw charges. So for your knowledge and information, yelling run or giving other verbal directions to aid in escape could be considered aiding and abetting. Stepping or standing between ICE and the person they're trying to detain, including a human chain, shouting or pointing directions to help a person escape. Holding a door open or shut to help a person in their escape. Blocking an ICE vehicle with your body or car. providing escape transportation to someone in the moment ICE is attempting to detain them. Now, something that is extremely important. Part of the research that we did prepping this was to actually talk with other Indivisible leaders in some of these cities like Chicago, like Portland, where ICE has been operating in a big way. And something that we heard a lot was make sure you think through what is your main goal as you're out there and to center on the people you are trying to protect. The goal is to get the person home safely. So as much as you might want to just yell and scream and tell ICE exactly what you think about them and what they're doing to people, as much as you might want to go punch them in the face, like, believe you me, we feel those feelings too, we get it, but that's not what you do when you are out there trying to keep your community safe. Your goal is to get the person home safely. You are centered on the person or people you are trying to protect, and in every decision you make, that is where you stay centered. Of course, we've said this, but we're going to say it again. Understand that all interaction with ICE carries risk. This includes completely legal and nonviolent activity. ICE does not operate within the law. We've seen, countless things on the news, on social media, a pastor being pepper sprayed as he is praying and doing nothing violent or threatening. As we talk, there's likely, and again, emphasis on the likely, we cannot guarantee things, but based on what we are seeing, there are some likely threat levels that you can, as you think about what you are willing to do in a situation, likely threat levels that we've kind of assigned these colors. So blue would be none. You choose to walk away. And we're going to talk about that. That sounds so judgmental, but there are instances where that might actually be the appropriate decision for you to make in that specific situation. Green is low. You're keeping your distance. You're doing things that can be effective, but in a way that is appropriate for someone who maybe is not able to go be right front and center in that specific situation. There are roles that have moderate risk. You could get hurt or arrested. You're putting yourself out there. And there are some roles that are red, where you go in having made the assessment that, okay, I'm putting myself on the line here. You're willing to get hurt or arrested. Even if you're doing nothing that is violent or illegal, you understand that this is a role that has a significant amount of risk attached. And as you think about these risk or threat levels, just make sure that you decide and that you don't make that decision for other people. Again, wherever you are in this training, this is not the moment to stand up on your chair and declare, I believe that I am generally a red threat level person because, don't do that. But here's an example. Okay, so I am a US citizen born in this country. I am white. I am generally a person who feels like in this moment my job would be to go up, be a red threat level person, the front of the crowd, confronting ICE, putting myself on the line. That feels like what I should do in this moment, given my situation. However, my youngest is 5 years old. If I were with him, I would not go up and be front and center because context matters. I might be more towards the back of the crowd, holding up my phone and filming. Part of why we assigned these colors is to highlight that you do need to do your own risk assessment and be realistic about how upfront and in center can you be in these interactions with ICE. But we also want to emphasize that your choices aren't go be the upfront in center person or do nothing at all. There are ways in which you can be very effective and impactful in keeping people safe that don't require you to be the very front person. You can be blowing a whistle. Maybe you stay farther back, but you're recording. So please understand that you can assess that you can't be the very front and center person in the ways you would like to be at every situation, but that doesn't mean there's nothing you can do. We've sort of divided our responses to ICE by levels versus level 1 is the most basic, probably the most important, and the most effective. We have more advanced tactics that we want to talk through and teach you guys as well. But level 1 is just the whistle kit response. You may have seen these online or already have some. That is fantastic. But for anyone who's not familiar with this, let's talk about it so you know what it is and know how to train all your friends and neighbors and everyone you know on how these work. They've been super effective in cities like Chicago especially. It's pretty cool. So here's the idea. You have a whistle, and you just blow a bunch of short whistles to signal that ICE is in the area. Now, if ICE is actually actively detaining someone, you just blow a long whistle as long as you can without passing out, and then do it again. Just nonstop, unbroken whistle. And here's what's really cool about this. So remember back on the aiding and abetting slides, the guy throwing the sandwich, right? If you were to yell, run, that could technically be considered aiding and abetting. Whistles are not. If we have enough people who understand the whistle system, what happens is people who know, okay, short whistles mean ICE is in the area, will hopefully fall into one of two camps. The people who feel that, okay, I'm in a position where I can go, see, we've got those dots here, that's the low to moderate threat level. People who know, okay, I'm in a position I can go and help if ICE is detaining someone, they can come and form a crowd. They can pull out their whistles, start whistling, form a big crowd, come run to the scene wherever they hear the whistles are, right? One of the most effective things about this whole tactic is that ICE gets very intimidated when there's a big disapproving crowd. That has happened over and over again, is that if there's no one around and ICE wants to snatch someone, they do it. If there is a huge crowd, especially one that is loud, whether it's whistling or shouting or saying, don't do that, how dare you, these are our friends, these are our neighbors, these are our coworkers, it slows them down, or in some cases they just decide, never mind, we're out. The other thing the whistles do, if you are a person who is worried about being detained by ICE and you know that the short whistles mean ICE is in the area, it lets you know, I've got to get myself somewhere safe. If you hear that and you are concerned about ICE taking you, you know to get to a home or some other private protected area where ICE can't just take you. How cool is that? Please, if you are able to distribute these yourself, we'll make sure we provided you with the links. This is a free PDF. You can print them. They do take a little bit of time to fold, so, pick your favorite movie and fold a couple dozen of them. It's well worth the time to just get this out to people, or even just the info on just the short whistles, ICE is in the area, long whistle, ICE is detaining someone. This is powerful. It's simple, but it works. But let's talk through more advanced tactics, if that's something that you're willing and wanting to do. So our level 2 and 3 response are very similar. Level 2 and level 3 are essentially the same thing, but level 2 is if for whatever reason you are the only person there who has to do everything. Maybe it's because it is just you, ICE, and the person being detained, or maybe you're in a large crowd, but no one else in the crowd is willing to say or do anything. I hope that's not the case, but in theory it could be, right? Level 3 is, suppose you did get a big crowd assembled, you got the whistles going, and there are people there who seem willing to help, and you're like, hey, can I delegate out a few tasks? I'm gonna do this, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do this, right? Things go better when you have people assigned specific tasks. I am an organizer who, we did the No Kings protests in June and October in Provo. But the first protests we ever did were before that. They were smaller, but big enough that it would have been good to have a person assigned to count the crowd, to take pictures, to pass out water to people, just, to do those things. I was running around trying to do every single one of those things. And, the protest happened. It was great, but we came home and I just collapsed. So the thing is, with this level 2 response, it is possible for a person to do these things. It would be intense and it would be a lot. It would be much better to have people delegate it out, but it can be done. So all that said, we're going to kind of quickly go through this level 2 response and then go through in much more detail what each one entails and why it's ideal to have people individually doing each one. So, level 2 approach. It's essentially if it's just you, the person being detained, and ICE. We have these little cards, again, a file available for you to print, just kind of a quick shorthand guide. Again, I know you are probably a very smart person who could remember 4 steps, but I know for myself when I'm in a stressful situation, even really basic stuff just goes out the window. So if you want something like this in your wallet, this is available. The first thing you need to do is just get in there and say something. This card says, stop. Why are you arresting this person? And, feel free to say that verbatim if you want, but it can be, hey, it can be, dude, it can be something stronger. I don't know. You need to say something. Get in there, interject, get yourself in the situation, and say something to confront ICE. And then the next thing is to get out your phone and begin to record. If you can, make sure that you're recording at this point. The person who is being detained, it is very helpful if they are willing and you're able to get their name, birth date, and an emergency contact number. I put right here just the basic quick phrases in Spanish if they're not an English speaker and Spanish is their language. And then the last thing, continue to record while doing all you can to prevent ICE from detaining the individual. Let's break it down in a lot more detail than that. So here's the other side of that card where we've kind of broken this down into the separate steps, but this time it's as though you have 4 people who are all able to take on different roles. And you'll notice the colored dots that kind of break down to the risk levels, right? So you have 2 people who will be quite close on the scene with that red dot saying these are the higher risk people who are really willing to get up close and be there. Then you have someone who is filming the documentary, which again, there's still risk. All of these positions have risk, but they're a little more removed. And then a green crowd gatherer type role, who is the lowest risk of these different people, but still very important. But what you would do, we've got a bunch of people, we've done this level 1 whistle type response, or at least have a big crowd, and you can take the lead and say, okay, are you guys willing to help me out? I'm going to go talk to ICE, and you're going to do this, 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 and this, right? So, if you are the confronter, you say, stop, hey, you just have to start by saying something, right? Understand that confronting and questioning ICE is protected speech. There are many things ICE will tell you that you can't do that, yes, you can. It is legal. Don't let them tell you anything different. Now, of course, if you get close enough that they perceive that you are trying to harm them, that could be considered a reason for them to do something aggressive. So basics with any law enforcement is maintain about 10 feet, like 2 body lengths of distance, right? If they tell you that you're too close, it's a good idea to comply within reason. If you're already 20 feet away, that's silly. You can just state, I am at a reasonable distance or something. But, take an itty-bitty step back to demonstrate that you're willing to comply. That's a good practice. And also to keep both of your hands visible at all times, making it very clear your intent is not to harm in any way. You are there, you are talking. Now, if you're this confronter, if you can be willing to be the point person to continue talking with ICE, remembering that your goal is to get the person home safely. How do you do that? This is where you just have to kind of read the situation. What you may want to do is slow things down. Maybe the person being detained has a lawyer that's on their way. Maybe you just need to buy enough time to help that person get there. Maybe things are looking like they're going to get really crazy and violent. Maybe you need to de-escalate. If you're willing to be the point person to continue talking with ICE to see if there's anything you can do to de-escalate, to slow down, whatever seems to be the right tack in that moment with the people you're dealing with. And just always, always, always remembering the goal is to get the person home safely. It will almost never be helpful to scream, to shout, to do things that are going to encourage those ICE agents to be more angry and more violent, because that increases the likelihood that the person being detained, others on the scene, are more likely to be hurt and assaulted. We had info gatherer printed on those cards. We needed something short enough to fit on that little tiny card. But a better role in what we decided to put on this presentation is talk to the person being detained. Because yes, gathering information is critical, but it's only part of what we feel is important. So just from the outset, understand that talking to the person being detained is perfectly legal. ICE agents may tell you you can't or to stop. That is not true. You absolutely can talk to the person. With the one exception that you legally could be charged if you were to give them directions on how to escape. The information specifically that you, in an ideal situation, would gather would be the person's name, birth date, an emergency contact phone number. This can be vital in helping loved ones know where they were taken, because sadly, in a lot of cases, people are snatched by ICE and their family and friends don't know where they are for days. They have no idea. So if you're able to at least get this information, so you can call them and say, hey, this happened, your loved one was taken, that can help them be able to track down where they are much, much sooner. If you can get them to record it into your phone you're holding out, then that would be ideal. And along with that info gathering, though, very important things are helping the person to know their rights. They might already know this. Again, though, when things are emotionally charged and scary, sometimes things you already know just fly out of your brain. They just do. So a lot of us already have these know your rights cards, either for ourselves or to carry and give to others. This situation, do whatever you safely can, maybe even verbally just explaining some of those know your rights things if you have a card on you. And the other thing, just simply being there for comfort and support in any way the person is comfortable with. Again, we always want to stay centered on the person being detained. Maybe they're not comfortable giving the information like their name and birth date. It can be extremely helpful, but if they don't want to, don't push it. Maybe they don't want you anywhere near them, and probably you wouldn't be physically allowed to give them a hug. But just even saying, hey, I'm here for you. If it were me and someone were trying to take me away, even if it were some stranger, just knowing that someone out there cared that this was happening to me would do a lot. So again, centered on the person. They may just not be in a place where they want some random lady or dude saying those things, but it might make all the difference. The third role we have on here is document. This is so important, and yes, you 100% have the right to record ICE. ICE agents may tell you to stop recording. Don't. If you have watched any of the many recordings on ICE interacting with people, you will see all over the time they say, stop recording, don't do that, or even swap people's phones away. Yes, that happens regularly. But you have the right to record ICE. Don't let them tell you any different. You can calmly respond, I'm recording from a safe distance, which is my First Amendment right. Or just ignore them. But you have the right to film. 100%. Any court is going to respect that. Some important things about filming, though. Don't narrate, just document. This is hard. You just want to be like, oh, he just hit him. Now she's running. But really, it's incredibly important. And especially, don't narrate. You just have to just stand and silently get good footage of what is happening. Remind yourself how important that role is and do it well. Because again, if it's just you and ICE, something is better than nothing. But having a really good, clear video of what happened could be critical, whether it's to use in a court case down the line or just to show the world what's happening. So just document. You can always add a voiceover later on if that's something you want to do, but in the event that it needs to be used for legal purposes, you really want to have just the clearest, best, not talked over video that you can possibly have. If you can, though, because I know some people are like, oh, well, you should say the location and the date and all these things. What you can do that's much more effective even than that is if you're able to catch in the video any street signs, any landmarks, if it's by a store, if it's by, the Y on the mountain in Provo, whatever you can catch that can clearly show where this is located without any ambiguity, that is wonderful. So that is a good thing to do if you can. Along with that, any badge numbers, license plates, how many law enforcement officers are present, again, for clear documentation of who is there and who is involved. Those are wonderful things that are good to have in a video if you can. And this can feel kind of awkward, but much like our little hands in the slide, trying to keep both hands visible at all times. Now, here's something that's very important. Again, always staying centered on the person being detained with the goal of their safety, physically and emotionally being front and center. Don't post to social media without checking with the family and lawyer if they have legal representation in play of the person who's being detained or attempted to be detained. Now, if you do get permission to share whatever footage you took, it's really powerful to have these videos online and to show the world what's happening. I think there are a fair amount of people who would say, yes, please put this online, but you need to check and make sure that's the case. Do not assume. But if you have permission, what you need to do is make a copy of the video. Don't even rename the video. You do not touch it. You do not do anything to your original video. You make a copy of it. This is very important for chain of custody if this were to be used in any type of legal case. You make a copy of the video, and then with that copy, you do all the things like that. You can rename it, but what's very important is that you remove any personal information. Remember our info gatherer step, or the talking to the person. What if you did get an emergency contact complete with a phone number, right? You don't want to blast this person who's detained's brother's phone number on the internet. Like, that's not what we do, right? So you would want to edit that out, possibly blur some faces if there are children or other people who, for whatever reason, we don't want to have just full blast on the internet, right? We want to make sure that if we have permission and it's a video that needs to be shared, that we do that, but we also want to make sure that we're protecting the people and privacy who we need to protect, right? And this number 4 person, gather a crowd, coming back to the whistle tactic, like, it sounds so just like simple and like, really, whistles? We're gonna beat these guys with whistles? Yeah, yes, we are, with our whistles and with our passion and our commitment to protecting people we care about. That is exactly what we're going to do. If you have the people doing those 3, we have someone confronting, continuing to talk to the people who are detaining, someone talking with the actual person being detained, someone who is dedicated solely to filming and getting really good, clear footage of what is going on. If you have another person who can continue, whether it's whistles or just saying, hey, come on over here. ICE is trying to detain someone. Come help us, to make that crowd bigger, encouraging extra people within that crowd to also film. So then you have it from multiple angles. The more, the better, right? Just continuing to build that crowd, get more people to film, get more people to push back on ICE and say, hey, we're not all right with this. And that's what we do. So, what now? Our hope is that we can get these tactics out just far and wide everywhere we possibly can, and particularly the whistles. Because the thing about the whistle system is it's not effective if 3 people know about it, right? But if we have a ton of people all over Utah, and particularly in the areas that we're most concerned about in Utah, that ICE is more likely to target, if people are carrying whistles and know what the whistles mean, that makes it dramatically more effective, right? So we want to get these out and everywhere. If you can make and distribute whistle kits, all the better. Our Indivisible group and others throughout the state are doing our best to just get these everywhere. If that's something that you would like to do, all that we've put in ours, so a whistle, which, as much as we don't love giving our dollars to Amazon, you can get a bunch of cheap whistles on Amazon. If you've got access to a 3D printer, there are 3D printer forms that make a really cheap and extremely loud little whistle. If you really intend to wear one at all times, the fact that they are so small and so flat is a huge deal. Try carrying around the standard whistle with like a little ball in it for an hour and you will understand in a hurry. So we highly recommend a 3D printed route, but just whatever you're able to do. We've got the instruction pamphlets that we had the little picture of on here. It's a free PDF. Red cards, the Know Your Rights, a free PDF. We've got actual like printed ones that you can do on red paper or a QR code that takes you to like a digital version of that. And the little reference cards that had like the level 2 and level 1, the 1, 2, 3, 4 steps, as well as the ones with the colored dots. If you'd like those little references, they're a free PDF that we just recommend you get printed somewhere locally as a business card. That's what we did, and they're actually pretty cheap to get a whole bunch of them. So if you want to put together a whistle kit, you can throw any combination. Really, the most important, the whistle, the instruction pamphlet, right? Those other two things are nice to have. So they're important, but if you can just get a whistle in that little pamphlet, throw it in a Ziploc bag, and just give them to anyone you can. Now, we all know that ICE is active in Utah. So when we hear a rumor that ICE is in the area, because we are humans who love people and care about people, our knee-jerk reaction sometimes is to just spread the word. We want to let people know of even the slightest possibility of danger so they can be aware. But we really would love for everyone to take a moment and breathe and commit to not post online about ICE without a full salute. What does that mean? It's an acronym, a list of things that you should know for facts before you blast online with information about ICE that may be incomplete or incorrect and cause panic and harm rather than help the people that we would like to help. Salute stands for S, size and strength. How many ICE or other federal agents can you see? Is this 2 guys? Is it 20 guys? That's important to note. A for activity and action. What is happening? Is it a traffic stop? Is an employee being pulled out of a business? ICE is here is not super helpful. Be specific and say what you see federal agents doing. Location. This is very important. You need to be much more specific than just a city. Saying that ICE is in Harriman. Well, okay, can you give a street address? What are these agents wearing? Are they in the local law enforcement uniform, which, like here in Utah County, we'll talk more about 287Gs in a moment, you may see people carrying out immigration activity that are dressed in the same uniform as our local police because they are acting as one and the same in some places. Are they wearing things that say ICE, that say CPB, that just say police, or maybe none of these things at all? Specifying what we see them wearing is important. Time and date, possibly the most important of all. We'll talk about that in a moment, but please give a time of day and the date on anything that you post. This is absolutely essential. And equipment and weapons, I think we all know that ICE is generally going to be armed to the teeth. They are carrying a lot of weapons, but can you specify like how many vehicles and what those vehicles look like? That is all very important for people to know. Now, I wanted to share some bad examples, and I want to be clear that I don't want to shame people, and I thought I would start off by a screenshot of a post I shared last summer to make the point that when many people are sharing these rumors or what they think might be good information about ICE, it comes from a place of wanting to do good, but we all need to learn better so we can do better. So this was me last summer. We saw a really weird thing that to this day, I don't think it was unreasonable to think it was ICE just because it was so odd in our area. We never heard anything about it or saw anyone detained. So clearly it ended up not being something I should have alerted. But I was concerned, so I threw down this ICE alert, little itty bitty caption, EM at Pony Express and Ranches. Mark filming and trying to confirm. Our group was smaller back then, so I think most people knew that Mark is one of our co-leaders. This is really bad. This is not responsible ICE alerting. It is not. I don't have what these people are wearing. I don't have what vehicles they are in. I don't have anything specific that they're doing. This is not good ICE reporting. Let's go to another one. This is not an example of a responsible way to post about ICE. They've got a location that if you're in Hurricane, maybe you know where that is, but there's no date and there's no time. And this could be reposted and reshared for days, weeks, and months and cause panic. If you clearly have that this happened on February 5th, 2026, then even if this does get reposted, because we've all been in this situation where Facebook shows us a post about an event and you're like, thanks, Facebook, that was 4 days ago. This is a common thing on social media. We need to make sure that date is very clear. So then by chance, if someone does see it, even if it was good information a week ago, that's going to cause panic a week from now if this is no longer relevant. So please, 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 that date is so important. So just to emphasize, what should you do? Suppose you do see something, don't repost it. Go to the area yourself or quietly alert someone you know and trust nearby there if it's in a city that's far from you, and see if you can get that full salute. Send someone, if you can do so safely, to go with their phone to get pictures of these things, to get video, to confirm or deny whatever you saw posted. And once you have that complete information, alerting the community is a good thing to do. But let's all please make sure we can get that full salute. Don't repost, go find out more. So here's an example, all nice and color-coded with the acronym for salute. And I made this kind of silly on purpose because I wouldn't want anyone to think this was real. But it is actually a good example of what a salute-worthy report would entail. You have this complete, specific information so that people know exactly what is happening, where it is happening, and there's photo or video that can document the proof, which is even more helpful. Now, if you want a real life example of someone doing it right, you may be familiar with TJ. Her Instagram handle is Ducks and Clucks. She does incredible ice watch work in Utah. Highly recommend a follow, both to stay in the know about what ICE is doing in Utah, as well as examples of how to report ICE responsibly. And the bottom line, even making these slides or recording this training was very intimidating, but someone has to. We have to do something. We have to get to work. You may feel like this is scary or you're not the person to do it. Yeah, you are. We all are. We keep us safe. So we need to be ready. We need to be prepared. We need to spread the word. We need to spread these tactics. And I know that we're up for the challenge. So don't freeze. Act. Something is better than nothing. Let's get to it, guys. Thanks so much for listening to this.